Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to episode 12 of the Believers Early Careers podcast. This is your brother, Rahul Ali, the early talent man. So in today's episode, we're going to speak to brother Haseeb, who's on a chartered management degree apprenticeship. Because I know there are so many of us that choose to go on to do business and management at university. I sometimes wonder why don't we consider doing a business management or degree level apprenticeship. And this is what we discuss. So we talk about Haseeb being our 10th guest, which might not make sense to anyone because of the whole order is a little bit messed up, but he's the 10th person I've interviewed. His initial interest in becoming a pilot, discovering degree apprenticeships, and as soon as he did, applying, going all out for them. His experience on the management degree apprenticeship and what it's like going into a management role straight away as an apprentice, which isn't normally what we'd associate or the norm that happens when it comes to this sort of roles. You don't start a role in management basically, but in this apprenticeship he kind of does, and he's covering different areas of management, which is interesting to find out about. Let's talk about his transition, things, practical stuff like dress code, challenges, and going from education to employment that perhaps he wasn't aware of when he joined, and adapting to that stuff and getting that insight as well. We're also going to practical tips about the assessment center, and he does give some really practical examples as well that you can really take from. And there's a lot more there. They talk about business management, being a Muslim in the workplace, the importance of it, and all the career advice that Haseeb has to offer as well. I won't go into too much more, but I think the underlying message is, and if you look at people like Haseeb, people like Zain, people like Umair, if you ask them what it would be the underlying message about getting onto a degree apprenticeship, they'll tell you anyone can do it and it's possible. You just need to believe in it and practice the assessment center stuff and get familiar with it. And I think them being individuals that have gone onto these programs without any prior experience is a testament to that. And I think there's a lot that we could take from just by listening to them, listening to their advice, and also, reaching out and connecting with them if we have any questions or want to get anything clarified. So yeah, enjoy this episode. So welcome, brother Haseeb, to the Believers Early Careers podcast. How are you today, bro?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good, man. Salam, how's everything?
Alhamdulillah, it's good. Fun fact, I was doing some counting and I realized I think you are the 10th guest that I've interviewed. How does that feel? Big honor, yeah?
Feels good, man. I feel a lot of pressure now as well. I've got to make the 10th episode very special.
Nah, bro, no pressure, man. I was thinking about some times kind of flown by, and since I started with Osama from episode 1 to yourself now, and inshallah there's going to be more to come. But I think today's episode is going to be an interesting one because we're going to be discussing, and you correct me if I'm wrong, a management degree apprenticeship scheme at BT. And
That's correct.
the interesting thing I find about that is that at a sort of a young age, you don't really think about management as like a management apprenticeship or a management thing as like the first thing to sort of get into once you leave college. So it's going to be very interesting to see how your journey was towards that, and what led from starting college to getting on to this program, and how it's been so far, and how because normally when you start a role like as an apprentice or even as a grad, you don't normally focus on like management stuff that kind of comes down the line. But your particular program is very interesting because it is like straight away sort of focused around the whole theme of management.
Yeah.
So it's definitely be one I'm really interested to talk about, and how the listeners can also think about that as well, because I think it's important that we consider all different career paths, and management is a thing that's the theme of management is always there in every career you're in, and as you progress and develop, your management skills need to progress and develop as well. So it should be intriguing, inshallah. But as I usually do with everyone else, starting with a sort of career journey. So starting from college, how was it and what led you to this particular program?
So funny enough, I think it was during GCSEs. I sort of didn't know what I really wanted to do, like a lot of people. And coming to the end of my GCSEs, I sort of wanted to become a pilot.
Jeez.
So that was very. I mean, one of the whole reasons behind that was I joined the Air Cadets, and then joining the Air Cadets. I mean, I think I recommend a lot of people to join the Air Cadets. You learn a lot of stuff. You get to do a lot of fun stuff. I got to do flying, shooting, all of that stuff, and then from there, I sort of had a bit of interest in becoming a pilot. So then I sort of picked my A levels in a way that I could sort of become a pilot, and if something goes wrong, I'm still good at the end. During my GCSEs, I did GCSE business, and I really enjoyed it. And alhamdulillah, I did good. I got an A in that, and I thought, okay, maybe in the future down the line, this could be another career path for me. So in the end, my A levels were physics, economics, and business. And I think a month in, I realized I didn't want to become a pilot anymore because physics was so hard. Legit, it just demotivated me completely. And the whole plan was because obviously becoming a pilot is very expensive. You've got to pay for like all the lessons, and it's quite hard that way. So the only way I thought of doing it was if I go university and do an aerospace engineer degree with pilot studies, I can sort of get the pilot studies thing there for free in a way, and not have to pay like 50 grand
Yeah,
to
it's
do
crazy
it.
expensive, isn't it?
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's mad. So then I thought, okay, I'm failing physics already. There's no way I'm going to be able to do university physics in that way. Um, so then I sort of focused primarily on business and economics. And I thought I was sort of going to go off to uni and do like a business finance, business economics degree. And it wasn't until just before I started my A-level exams that I actually found out about degree apprenticeships and what they were. And it's really funny how schools they don't really advertise them a lot as they do compared to universities.
Definitely.
Like all I heard out through the whole last couple of weeks was UCAS, 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 find your uni spots and all that. Nothing on apprenticeships. And I sort of went out on my own way to sort of find them and go to like different apprenticeship sort of events and ask questions about them and find out more about them.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and then when it sort of came to management apprenticeships, I thought the whole reason I sort of picked this one, it sort of had a rounded thing of everything because I'll be getting a business management degree, which is which is a very similar degree that people usually do in universities anyway. So I thought I'd be getting best of the both worlds in a way. Instead of me just doing a purely a finance degree, I'll sort of be stuck in finance and not have a sort of broad range in a way.
yeah, it's interesting because I imagine, and probably speak from my experience, and it's probably a well-known fact that a lot of I think people from our community are very interested in the business and economics subjects, and
Yeah.
I think normally when they think about the next steps, it always normally goes on to a either a business management degree or a sort of degree in economics at university. But then after that, it's like, oh wait, what do we do now, and what do we sort of go for? Because like I have a relative, he's done a business management degree, 3 years he's done it at university. I think he's got 2-1 or something, so he's done really well. But now he's just stumped because even though I was telling him in between then to do like different internships and try to do different things, he was a bit relaxed about it, a bit too relaxed for my liking. But it was his choice at the end, and now he's in a boat where he's really trying to find something, and is in a way it feels like he's starting from scratch, which is like a bit of a shame. But
Yeah.
even like for myself, I didn't like I ended up doing a level 4 business management or business admin apprenticeship. So that's a civil service fast track one. It wasn't like something that I sort of intentionally sort of went for, but then that sort of side interest, was always there, and that combined with the fact that it's going to be a paid apprenticeship as well, I think kind of sealed the deal. If it was on its own, then I think I would have felt very skeptical about it because I don't know. And that's the amazing thing about degree apprenticeships, right? Because you're not just doing the business management side of things. You're actually you're learning it with a degree, but you're actually really doing that real work and building the real experience and combining the two together. Which I think when you combine business admin or business management with the actual real work, then you're going to be in a strong position. But
Hmm.
when you just have either just the theory, like the degree, and none of the experience with it, then I think it
Yeah.
becomes a lot more challenging, doesn't it? Because it's a very broad degree, and I think there's a lot of people that have studied it. So it's like, how do you differentiate from
Exactly.
the
That's the
competition. And
thing.
I'm guessing maybe that was something that kind of went through your mind where you're thinking, okay, the pilot thing, which I'm pretty sure I considered at one point in my career, till I did some googling and I saw some fee up to 80 grand. And I was like, okay, cross that one off. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, things like physics was going to be a disaster because I struggled at chemistry and biology, and I knew physics was always the much harder one. You always hear about physics is.
I still don't have no idea why I chose physics. All my boys were laughing at me like, bro, what you doing in your life?
But did you
Because
did you do that? What, did you do physics in? I'm guessing you must have done it in GCSE. Did you kind of do well at that?
yeah, I mean, I think I got a B in GCSE physics. So I thought, okay, the step up shouldn't be too bad. But little did I know what I was in for.
But
I mean, in the end, I didn't do too bad. I managed to get a D in physics, and then I got two Bs in business and economics. So alhamdulillah, it was still enough for me to sort of get into what I wanted to do.
yeah,
Um,
and even like I think for me, I think I got A in chemistry and in biology, so I thought this is gonna happen. And A levels was another level. I was the first one to drop out of chemistry, basically,
I
in my
think
whole
at one
class.
point at A levels is sort of the hardest point that you will reach in your education. Um, Honestly, I think it's a lot harder than GCSEs, and so when you get to university, it sort of comes down a bit. But A levels really is at that peak
Yeah,
because of like the intensity of doing you're doing over 2 years, and it's straight
yeah,
forward theory, no lot sort of coursework in the
yeah.
way.
The struggle was real, man. And I'd always like you kind of mentioned about how these schools and colleges always talk a lot about university and UCAS, and then if anything, that kind of puts more pressure to perform at A level, because if you want to get into a good university and for like certain subjects you really need the A's and A stars,
Yeah,
right? Whereas with degree apprenticeships, strangely the requirements aren't as high, and I think if I'm correct, it's something like maybe minimum of C's, or is it BCC, something like that. So it's a lot less
yeah,
than
exactly. Yeah,
what universities ask for if you're looking to get into like those top ones. So I think definitely degree apprenticeships it's the perfect role of both, and it's something
yeah.
that we really need to push as a community to our people and get them to think about it. And that's why I really like how I've got you on, and I've got a couple of other BT degree apprentices on, so it can kind of really give that insight into that particular program, which leads me on to so when you're looking at, and I think you touched upon it before, this particular program, what sort of were you looking at other ones as well? Were you applying for other ones at the same time? Like if so, were this in similar kind of professions, or was it quite varied when you were applying?
So I sort of applied to, I mean, once I found out about degree apprenticeships, I was going all out applying to every sort of company I could find. And they were primarily around project management, business management, because I sort of found that as seeing the best fit. Because I enjoyed doing business at A levels. I thought, okay, I'm gonna probably enjoy doing it in uni as well. So primarily I was focused on that. But then I did come across other ones like finance ones, economic ones. I thought, okay, let me just see how it is. Let me apply for that and see how it goes. But primarily it was basically focused on project management because I sort of saw myself as doing that in the future as it would give me like a wide, diverse range, and I wouldn't be sort of stuck in one place. You know what I mean? Because I could sort of be open to other
Yeah,
paths.
and it's good that you applied for. You didn't just wait on one, which I think sometimes we can fall into that trap of doing, thinking, okay, this is the ideal one for me, and just end up waiting for that application window to open and not doing anything else. But you looked at quite a lot, and I think, would I be right to like kind of assume that going through the process of different degree apprenticeship application stages helped you kind of secure the BT one in the end?
Definitely. Definitely, yeah, because once you start applying to a lot of them, a lot of the stuff that you come across is quite the same. I mean, like the questions you get asked, the processes when you do video interviews, which is a
Yeah,
really tough thing. I'll come on to that later on. But doing a lot of them gives you the sort of experience. And if you somehow come across like a really good apprenticeship you want to do afterwards, you've gone through a lot of those applications already, and you've got that experience, and then you can sort of refine your final application form in a way. So it will sort of give you the best head start as
yeah,
possible.
and it's 100% encouraged to just go through the process for different schemes and not put your eggs in one basket, and kind of more likely to lead to disappointment. But I noticed that I was looking at your sort of career sort of history, well, your education history, and I realized you straight out of the 2 years at college or sixth form, you went straight into the apprenticeship more or less, didn't you? Um,
Yeah.
how was that then, sort of transitioning from literally being like from a sort of school, college kind of background straight into a big place like BT.
It was a big transition. I made a lot of mistakes because you sort of sometimes overthink it as well. I remember for the first day that I went to the office, I wore like a full-on suit, and I walk in, and slowly as I see, I was like, okay, why is this not as formal as I thought it would be? And then by the time I get to my seat, I see everyone sort of like being like wearing like informal stuff, and then I'm just there, look, wearing like a full-on suit, and I was looking at like, what is this guy doing? So it was a big step up, and it is intimidating. I remember like walking into the office at that first point, I just stopped in the middle, just looked around me, like see everyone rushing back and forth, and how like dynamic and diverse it was. Like it was something that I've never experienced before.
Yeah,
But I did slowly, gradually get into it. And to be honest, I think for the first couple of weeks, I did have like a sort of little sense of regret. I was like, did I really choose the correct thing for me? Because all of my friends went off to go university, and that sort of regret was that I'm going to be left behind in a way. Because me doing a full-time job and work, it was sort of difficult. I thought it'd be difficult for me to sort of keep up with them, and sort of just be with them more often. But that sort of sense of regret sort of died down, and I sort of got used to what I was doing, and I'll still be able to like have a social life on the side. It wasn't purely me being busy all the time. So after that sort of acknowledgement of what I was doing and that it would be okay in the end, and I'm sort of in the best place where I can do sort of take a step back and see what you're doing compared to what you could else be doing. Because I could have been in uni with suffering with like 9K debt every year. But here, alhamdulillah, I'm working, I'm getting paid, I'm doing my uni at the same time, I'm learning and taking on new experiences. So it was a big step up, but it was sort of gradual, and uh, it depends on the sort of people you come across. You um, nail down that whole transition of you being sort of comfortable in your thing. And I think it did take me like a month or two to sort of get comfortable in what I'm doing and sort of get settled in.
yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of for example, the dress code. Like when I had interns coming in last year, it's weird 'cause I told them that you guys can come in with jeans, t-shirt, whatever you're comfortable in. But a lot of them still came in fully suited and booted on the first day, and then they probably straight away realized that everyone else is so dressed so
Yeah,
casually that they stick out. And next day after that, they came in and as normal. But it's like those little things when you're coming out of education and you might have access to those people that are in these sort of different professions or that are in the kind of office environment and that are very familiar with it. You don't really know what to expect, do you? Like you don't, like nobody really told you that, you don't have to come in fully
yeah,
suited and booted because, and I think that because you just don't have that access to that information, which is very small, but
but it's important.
exactly, it's
It
important.
makes a difference.
Because yeah, when you went in there, if you probably felt a bit more, you stand out a bit too much, which kind of can feel a bit unsettling, right?
Yeah,
But I think once you realize it and you kind of acclimatize to the environment and just kind of sort of fit in as like gradually when you realize that, you know what, I don't need to be just like this, I can just like this, or this is how people work and this is how I should do it, and it's just it's that observation, isn't it? Which right now with the whole virtual stuff going on, people probably won't get as much. But when you're in the office and you're just exposed to that environment, then I think it can be a bit overwhelming at times. But then I think when you're there, you're like you're in the learning basically. You're in that
hmm,
environment where everything you see you're downloading, and everything you
yeah.
see you're thinking that, you know what, this is how they do it. This is how
I'm gonna
that
change
works.
this. I'm gonna change that. Yeah,
Yeah, and then after like you said, a month or two, then you felt a lot more comfortable and a lot more settled. But it's just literally that case of going in and just observing. And that's why I think things like shadowing and even like stuff where they do initiatives where you could just go in into an office, visit it, and see what it's like. That is important because you're just seeing the environment and you're just taking it in. And then once you go in, like for example, for your next job or whatever, then you're gonna understand it a lot more better. Especially if it's your first job, you're gonna think, okay, you know what, I was
definitely.
in
Yeah,
that environment. I went to different offices to shadow or whatever. There's different like places like I think Uprising, they do like a fast lanes program where they get people to go to different offices and different workplaces and see what it's all about. Stuff like that. If you do things like that and you just see what's there, then you're going to be far more prepared because it's crazy. That you don't. It's not something that comes to the mind, and it's something that, for example, for someone like me, can easily forget because
sure.
it's that very start, isn't it, where these little things are quite big, but then once you just experience it and know it, it becomes very minor. It's become second nature. Another point you mentioned as well, which is normally one of the challenges when you mention university versus apprenticeships, which is university gives you that socialization element, and you have
Yeah.
access to more sort of I guess brothers or people that you meet, whereas apprenticeships can feel a bit more sort of isolated in that sense. And I think for some schemes where they have only a couple of vacancies, or you're only like the only apprentice in the sort of business unit, then I think it can feel a bit like that at times. But I think at BT there's a lot of apprentices there, aren't there? And I think from what I gathered from speaking to Zishan and Omer, there seems to be quite a lot of support mechanisms. Is that correct from your understanding? And did that help you as well?
There is, yeah. I mean, you sort of got to find the people, and you eventually come across them anyway. And a lot of the times, all your uni side of things, they sort of help you as well. My uni is a bit different because it's all primarily online. Like I'm sure Umair and Zain probably told you about their one. They go off on different blocks and they sort of go there for like 2 weeks and meet other students. Mine was primarily always online, and I'd only ever go in like once a month, it's like a 2 day workshop. And even then, I remember when I first went to my first uni workshop, I walk in, I thought I was in the wrong room. I see like 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, all like a lot older than me. I'm like, what are you guys doing on this course? And then they sort of told me, oh, that we're managers sort of doing this apprenticeship now, sort of just solid off our career and get that final qualification. So it was a bit from there on. I was like, okay, I'm stuck here now, with people older than me. But then after, when I sort of
Yeah.
realized, I found out about the BT Muslim Network, a lot of more apprentices through there, even through my department. Once you get more confident speaking to people, you'll get to know more stuff around them, and you'll find out, okay, there's apprentices here, there's grads there. I think I'm going to be okay now in that sort of way.
Yeah, and one thing as well is that the fact that you were surrounded by people that are a lot more experienced isn't. I guess there's two sides to it. One side is you
Yeah.
want someone, and I've been in both sides where my first line manager was like she started 20 years before I was born. So
All
imagine
right.
that she worked for 20 years, then I was born. Then 20 years later, she carries on
Anyway, another
working.
20 years
Then I
later.
met her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that office, people were old enough to be never my dad, but old enough to be my granddad and grandma. So I
Yeah.
was in that office, and this is me and one other guy that started with me, and we were the only apprentices. So we kind of felt that side of it. But at the same time, I think we learned like a lot of wisdoms, and I think sometimes, well,
Definitely.
if the people are quite cool and they're quite all right, then you once you speak to them, ask them questions, you pick up a lot. And I think in that side, you get a bit of an advantage where you're learning from more experienced people by kind of getting familiar with them, and maybe it helps more with the maturing process. Because I know when I used to meet other apprentices, it was a lot more about the banter and the jokes. So I probably wasn't getting as much, gems of wisdom from them. It was more just having a bit more of the fun social element.
Having that sort of time off from the older people
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. Exactly that. Exactly that. It's interesting. I think it's embracing both. I guess if you meet other apprentices, go network, meet them, and have that relatability and social element. But with the others that are older, just learn what you can from them. And often I learn a lot from their mistakes because a lot of them they'll come in. They said, "Oh, we took it as a temp job for 6 months, and we even ended up here for 10, 20 years." I'm like, how the hell did that happen? And they just got
Exactly.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing I learned is a lot of people get comfortable and then they stop seeking the development and progression that they might need to get onto the next level. So it's probably a little advice there for you. If you see those people, just remember, don't become that person that falls in.
No, I've seen them.
Yeah,
I think there's a guy on my team. He's been there for 35 years, and I can't imagine. I mean, yeah, BT is a big place. There's a lot of stuff to move around on. You can have like very different jobs, but I think being in the same organization for 35 years itself can sort of limit you from experience. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it if you're happy there and you like the work, but it sort of limits you from experiencing different stuff. And the world is a big place.
massive.
There's loads of different stuff to sort of experience out there, and you never know what else you might further enjoy.
Yeah, no, 100%. But let's go into now the your experience on the actual management apprenticeship. So I think to start off, how does it actually work? Like the program, how long is it, and what's the structure of it?
So the program overview. So the name of the program that I'm on is a Chartered Management Degree Apprenticeship. It's a 4 year course, and over the course of 4 years, I'll be going through four 12-month rotations. So right now I'm in my first one now. I'm coming to the end of one. I just move on to my next rotation and on the 7th of October. And then during that time, I'm obviously doing my assignments. And then at the end of the whole course, I'll get a degree in professional management and a status of a chartered manager. So throughout those four rotations, it's basically primarily on your organization to find them for you, and they sort of try and pick the rotations that sort of align with your modules next year. So the current one I'm in now is similar to Zishan. He's in commercial. I'm in commercial operations as well. So I work in the product pricing team. So being in that team, I was able to sort of work with project managers doing the whole like implementation of the price change. And it's when I first started, I thought it'd be like a normal like 2 day price change thing, but it takes like 9 months for one thing to happen. There's like a lot of stuff involved. And once you get down to like the nitty gritty stuff, it's crazy, like the amount of work that goes into do one small thing. Like they'll be changing a price from 5.99 to like 6.99. You think, oh, it'll happen overnight. You just update the system, but now it takes like a full on 9 months to actually happen.
Yeah, because it must calculate like stuff like the impact of it, the
Yeah,
the was it the inflation rate, the markup, the costs, or like there must be a lot of thinking behind it and stuff like stakeholder engagement. What's the market saying? What's their price like? And does this make sense or does it not make sense? But
yeah.
yeah, it's actually it's pretty sounds pretty crazy. But so is yours more? Is there like more project management, or is there going to be like a variety where you do different areas of management, such as the operational as well? Because I know you mentioned
It's
four
sort of a
placements, so is that how it's going to be?
it's sort of a variety as well. So I mean, if you sort of work in organizational management, you can sort of work on projects as well. So you can sort of get the two right there as well. But it sort of depends on like what sort of areas you're interested to. Like my next one, I'll be going to financial management. So now I'll be getting a whole overview of that then. And then a year after that, it could be maybe in organizational management. So you sort of get do like a whole overview of everything available to you.
Yeah,
So it's good in that sense.
and yeah, it sounds mad because I'm aware of the charter management level 6 apprenticeship standard, and I think that's the one you're pretty much doing. And yeah, there's a lot of different modules of content, which is why I think they're probably giving you a good variety. But how's it for you personally? Like, I know you come into the corporate environment and you mentioned some of the challenges, but knowing you're like starting off from like a management sort of position, how do you find that? If there's any way to kind of describe that sort of feeling where you're in this team and like you're already they're already kind of training you up to
Hmm.
at that management level from the get go. Like how do you like kind of find that? Do you think that do you feel like you would have preferred maybe starting at just more kind of like support, or do you enjoy this whole bigger element of responsibility?
It was a bit awkward at first, telling other people what to do
Yeah,
and sort of set up meetings and be like, yeah, you need to do this, this needs to be done. But I think this is sort of the best place for me because I've always sort of been like, I've always liked to sort of go into it straight ahead and get into it. And if it is an apprenticeship, it's going to be very hectic at the moment. So by you jumping into it straight away, it sort of eliminates all the other stuff. And I think it just helps you save time and sort of find out, is this really for you in the future? Because if I started off doing support, it'd take me, what, 3 years to complete that and then moving on. By the time I've done that, I've sort of wasted a lot of time where I could have done it from the get-go. And then if this really wasn't something I wasn't interested into, I could just left it from there on and maybe sort of done a pilot degree or something like that.
yeah,
So by me going into it straight away, it gave me like a full insight of this is what I really want to do. And that's the whole point about an apprenticeship. Because you could do 3 years at a company, you're earning money, you're sort of doing the thing that you might want to do in the future. And if you sort of come across that, okay, I really don't like to, I really don't want to do this in the future, you sort of haven't wasted time going to uni and then doing it, where you sort of done the experience. And from here on, even if you want to go to uni now, that's still an option
yeah,
because you sort of found out this is not what I want to do. I want to do something in maybe economics or maybe even do medicine. By you just doing the apprenticeship, it gives you that sense of mind that okay, yeah, this is what I really want to do, and that was what was sort of key for me because I was very uncertain of what I wanted to do. Halfway through, I was like, okay, maybe why not just go to uni and do a finance degree? But once I was sort of into it and got understanding of how it was, it really did give me like a full insight of what I could be doing in the future.
yeah. And what I really like about it is that from the start you've got real responsibility and you're owning the work. like setting the meetings and setting the work deadlines. And I think sometimes, especially at a young age, that can be intimidating, right? That can be a bit
Definitely, yeah.
oh, how do I go about that? I'm just some young apprentice coming in.
Just the minor stuff. It's very small, but yeah, it happens.
Yeah, but I think that at the same time, that sort of stepping out of that sort of comfort zone and owning it and taking responsibility, you probably must have felt a massive sense of development and growth literally from that alone. And I think the reason why I mentioned this point is because even when I perhaps used to read certain job specs from before, I used to think that's too much responsibility, man. I don't think I want to do that. I'd rather
Yeah,
avoid that. And I realized that was a big mistake because the more you get yourself into, especially at the early stages of your career, the more you can do, the more responsibility you can take. That the quicker you're going to accelerate and develop and be ready for the next grade or whatever's to come. So if people are listening to this and thinking, man, this things like this might intimidate me, or I don't feel like I'm confident enough, but I would say, what, just go there and go for it, because
give it a try.
yeah, there was no harm. Like you said, you're getting exposed to different areas and you're figuring out. And another amazing thing is, by being in the environment and by doing it and by being exposed to these sort of different areas, you're learning what you like, what you don't like, what are the good things, what are the bad things. Is this the right atmosphere? Is this the right culture? Is this the right people? Things like that. Is this the right industry or environment for me? Stuff like that, where you don't like you can't get from the outside, because it's all very varied from person to person. For example, when I was in retail at EE in sales, like people that loved the sales environment, they loved making the commission, they loved spinning a deal to
Yeah.
make a customer buy extra stuff without the customer really knowing, and get extra commission. Whereas for me, someone else might really like that because they think, wow, it's easy money, I can make that. And for them, that might be the great environment. For me, I was like, I'm trying to become practicing here. I'm trying to start building on my
You don't feel right doing it. Yeah.
yeah. I felt
That sense of mind.
yeah.
You find that you're ripping people off in a way.
Yeah, and it's I wouldn't have ever known that if I wasn't in that environment, and I wouldn't have ever known that if I wasn't there observing the people, observing their mindset, observing what was good, observing what was bad. And I think that's the amazing thing about work and even apprenticeships. Even if it doesn't work out, let's say for example, hypothetically speaking, you did this for a year and maybe you didn't like it for whatever reason. You've got 1 year experience in sort of management sort
Exactly.
of role. So you're probably going to be in a much stronger position. Even if you now went on back to university to do a degree for 3 years and you apply for jobs after, we can say I've got 1 year of experience at BT.
It's already putting you ahead
Yeah,
when you're applying, because it's very competitive nowadays. You have to be getting involved in different sort of stuff to sort of get out there, and that's why apprenticeships sort of give you that sort of head start, because you've got 4 years experience and a degree at the same time, and you're the same age as them, so you're
it's
already miles better off.
crazy, man. It's actually it's actually mad how that works. But that's why we want to push it and get people to think about it and go for it, because
Definitely.
it's there for the taking, and you just got to do what you got to do to apply and make the effort and secure those positions, and it's not impossible. It's not.
Even worst case, I mean, like, if you do it for a year and you're not enjoying it, you still got that 1 year experience, like you said, and also you've saved a lot of money for you to sort of pay towards your degree at the
Yeah,
end.
exactly.
So already off, you're still benefiting anyway.
Yeah. What's meant to happen at the end of the program? Do they have Is it going to be from what I gathered? It might be a case of um, you perhaps specialize in maybe a certain area, or they might say these are the certain roles available, and they'll basically try to set something up for you, and based on perhaps your strengths and preference. Is that sort of right?
So yeah, that's correct. So normally at the end, when you're coming to the fourth rotation, they sort of you sort of work with the HR team, sort of pick a role that you sort of want to end off on and possibly roll out on. So once you're in that role, it'll sort of give you a mindset of like, okay, I'm going to be doing this for maybe a year on or however long. I also want to stay in the organization after I finish my apprenticeship. So you sort of find a role that you've sort of liked over the course of the 4 years, and sort of just try and roll up on it, and sort of so that's the sort of
Yeah,
time where you sort of find, is this really for me? Do I really want to specialize in this, or do I want to move there? And the good thing about BT, it's very diverse. There's a lot of roles and opportunities out there, being a large company. So there's a lot of different stuff for you to sort of get involved in, like especially over the course of the apprenticeship. When you go into different stuff, you're like, oh, I like this, I like that, I want to go back to that. So it does give you that variety in a way.
that's important, especially when you're not. certain about what you want to do next, which a lot of people are like,
A
because
lot of people, yeah.
you don't know what it's actually like. You don't actually know what the day to day role is like, or what there's so many different factors that you can't figure out when you're on the outside, whereas when you're on the inside, you definitely can. Um, One thing I want to get into as well. Well, I know we touched a lot about things that you've learned in terms of it's kind of more the subtle soft skill stuff. Is there anything that, in terms of learning opportunities and things that you've learned in the first year that perhaps you would have never thought that you would ever come across before starting this? Like just general, it could be any sort of skill or any sort of experience that you've really felt that you've learned from.
I think the basics, sort of basic stuff of like communicating with people and setting up meetings, a normal work formality. Like it's not always very formal. It can sometimes be very informal and it's relaxed in that way. So just having like an understanding of it being very diverse, it can change like very quickly depending on the people that you're working with. That's sort of the main thing to sort of look out for.
Adaptability sounds like.
Adaptability. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's important as well. Having that skill to manage. It's like manage the way you approach certain things, um, different scenarios, different people, and even writing emails, even like putting in meetings. Is yeah, and again, it's one of those, isn't it, where you got to be in it to learn it. You can't teach it from the outside.
From before, I mean, yeah, it's quite difficult if you're not sort of in that environment.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's just something that you'll pick up very quickly.
yeah.
And you'll because you'll be doing it on a daily basis, and it's just understandable to sort of know what you're going to do.
Yeah, and then further, I think we've literally probably given like the best sort of case for people getting out there and doing some sort of work experience or some sort of exposure to just any sort of area of work, because yeah, we've mentioned it so many times now that the soft subtle things that you pick up which you just wouldn't do otherwise. And I think definitely we've pitched it really well and sold it very well. But what was the next point I was looking to get into? So we mentioned a lot about the program, how it works, the structure, what happens at the end. Um, what does a typical sort of day or week look like? Like, how would you try to describe to someone in college, like, this is what I do on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis? How would you try to picture it?
So it's funny. I sort of explain to my friends all the time what I was trying to do, and half the time they don't understand what I'm doing. So it's quite hard to put in words. So the role that I'm in right now, um, product pricing, let's call it that. A normal day would be me coming to the office. I sort of get there around 9 a.m. Get myself comfortable, put my laptop on, look through my emails, sort of look through my schedule and see what meetings I have today. And for the first couple weeks, you as an apprentice, you'll be on those meetings, but you'll sort of be listening in. So it'll be you sort of learning how it goes, what you're meant to be doing, what's it about, and then from there on, you sort of get comfortable and find your own work in a way. And it sort of depends entirely on the role that you're doing. My role being because it had projects involved, we sort of have daily catch-up meetings, talking about the project, what the update is, and then from there on, project managers will give our work, and then we'll sort of work on it during the day, during the week, and then if we need to set up calls with other people, that can be done during there. So it is sort of it starts off with that first call, and then from there on, it branches out, and you don't know what's going to happen during the day.
Yeah,
So it is very dynamic, and it does purely depend on what you're doing. Because you could be doing a finance role where instead of having meetings all day, you're on your laptop doing financial stuff like going through financial reports, writing journals up, looking through looking past forecasts and everything. So it does really depend on the type of apprenticeship that you're doing.
yeah, and like the financial forecast stuff is like when you're breaking down costs from different areas of the business or for activities and trying to bring it into like one big spreadsheet and trying to figure out what the cost is going to be and how to budget and where the breakdown is. And I think um, one thing do you do stuff like risk management?
That's something that I'm going to be getting involved in my next one. But I've come across it a bit in my modules
Yeah,
for the uni side and
yeah, I
stuff.
think it's an easy one to kind of explain it in some sense. So from yeah, because I'm trying to like really build a picture so people can think, okay, what would it actually be if I'm typing my laptop now? What would it be doing? So risk management is basically, if you're looking at a program or a project, we're kind of highlighting, okay, what things could put it at risk. So if the goal is, for example, we want to get, let's say, this is really random, but 5,000 new customers by the end of 3 months' time, the risk part is, okay, what if this happens? So there's stuff like it could be a let's just say technological risk would be what if our network goes down, or what if something goes really wrong with our service or servers, then what risk would that have on us getting those extra customers or something like that, or attracting people to the
Yeah.
brand? And then you kind of look at, okay, what is the likelihood of it happening, and then what is the impact. So if it's, for example, I think it goes from 1 to 5, and I'm not sure which one. I think one is pretty the lowest, 5 is the highest. So if it's like, for example, the server's crashing, could be a 2, so it may be fairly unlikely, but the impact would be a 5, so that'd be a severe impact. Then it's kind of like, okay, what actions could we take to,
To prevent.
yeah, to mitigate it, basically. Yeah, exactly, prevent it. And it's kind of trying to do that prevention is better than cure kind of thing, where you try to highlight exactly what could come up, and do that sort of risk
Hmm.
assessment, and then look at, okay, well, how could we mitigate all of it and make sure that the
Yeah.
program runs as smoothly as possible. So I think maybe that might give a slightly clearer picture of how it could work. And other stuff is like stakeholder management. So you're trying to identify, okay, who are the customers, who,
Key stakeholders of like the project. I mean, I did a lot of that as well. I think one of the main things was that we have like a very large project team, and I was sort of given the role to sort of create a whole end-to-end implementation process, including all the stakeholders. So one thing, the easiest way I did that was sort of find out who all the going around the project, finding out who's involved in the project, the different roles, sort of speaking to them and sort of having like a 10, 15-minute conversation, finding out their steps and sort of just jotting it all down and then just sort of mapping it out on Excel and just sort of putting it in. So I think the best way to go around that is just talking to the stakeholders involved, finding out who they are, what they do, and it gives you a sense of mind of, okay, like they're there, that's what their job role is. This is where I fit in, this is where they fit into the whole process, and sort of how it connects together.
yeah,
And then by you also just talking to them, it sort of gives you that sort of experience of how to deal with different stakeholders because you're going to be talking to people who are doing different stuff. So by you relating to them, it gives you that sort of experience of diversity, of being able to change the way you're talking to people and the way you hold conversations with people as well.
yeah. I have a very like, sort of random question though. So this is kind of like linked to the key skills you've developed. Do you think management is like a soft skill or a hard skill? If that makes any sense.
It is it's a picky topic because by you, if you're not doing a management degree, you working on yourself, you're managing yourself in a way. So I mean, there are aspects of it which are soft skills, meaning communication, having adaptability, stuff like that. But once you go into like the nitty-gritty stuff about management of sort of how to run a project end to end, that sort of that's the transition where it comes out of being soft skills. But certainly aspects of it are soft skills, and I think that happens in sort of every sort of apprenticeship that you do or degree. Because if you're not managing someone else, you're always going to be managing the most important person, being you. So there are aspects of it that comes under soft skills.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think the soft skills element is something that is going to translate to every management role, isn't it? So even if you're doing project management, financial management, that sort of soft skill layer of management is going to go everywhere where you go. But then the hard skills element is going to be more about, okay, I guess what are the project management techniques, like the risk management or the financial forecasting,
Yeah.
or like leading operational function. How does that work? And I think that's where you start to build a more kind of technical know-how of how things work, and then practice those techniques in practice. But that makes any sense. But whereas again, the other things you pick up, the engagement, the soft skills, stakeholder management, that adapting to change to different people, tailoring your approach, being a people person, team player, all that kind of stuff, is like the layer of management that's gonna kind of help you with every element or every role you do, basically. So it's like that, I guess. Is it the T or whatever is where you've got the generalist skill, and then you've got the specialist skill, or the technical skill, and the generalist one. So the generalist one is going to be with you everywhere you go. The technical one is going to kind of be the tangent in terms of what area you might specialize in.
It varies.
So yeah, that's a
I think doing the apprenticeship sort of allows you to do that because in one, you could start off doing your apprenticeship in finance, and then the next role you could be doing in media and broadcast, and they're two um, very different roles, and they sort of give you that experience of expertise. So you've covered finance, and now you're moving into media and broadcast. So you've sort of got those two key technical roles under your belt in a way. So it allows you to sort of be diverse, and it gives you that experience of how to be diverse in the future. So when you do roll off in your own
yeah,
role and you sort of have that when you need to be diverse, you've already gone through it and you already know what you're going to expect.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the media side, which reminded me. I saw a post about the BT induction, and Rio Ferdinand was given like a
Yeah.
speech. So when you did your induction last year, was there anyone special that gave a speech, or was it just?
To be honest, I think they give a lot more hospitality to sort of the grads,
Oh,
but
right.
no, unfortunately, we didn't get Rio on our one. But our sort of induction was different. I mean, obviously now COVID and everything was the induction itself it was kind of daunting for me as well because it was a 2 day thing. And again, I remember I was wearing like a full-on suit when I got there, and then I see people in a lot more casual stuff. I'm like, oh, I did it again in a way. But I mean, it happens. I mean, you doing it one time, it gives you that experience of how to sort of overcome it. And I think it's not a big deal about you doing it. I mean, yeah, it makes you look professional and it makes you stand
Yeah,
out, which can also be a good thing as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
But you going through it individually, I think every sort of person needs to sort of go through that individually, sort of understand of like, okay, I've made a mistake once, now I know to sort of alter it. And it can be difficult sometimes because some quite hard sort of balance between the two and knowing when you have to do it and when you don't.
Yeah, but
So are you going?
I was gonna say it's literally figuring it out, isn't it? As you go along, you just
Yeah,
figure it
that's
out.
it.
That's literally it. And I can't write it up, and you can't write up and say how it exactly works, but it's your own sort of tailored journey which you will figure out as you go along. And 'cause I know I've mentioned the induction as well because I know Mary mentioned that he got to pray in Carolina's changing room, so I was wondering if you had something interesting like that uh, in there as
No,
well.
my induction was a bit different. Yeah.
No, that's fine, man. I guess not everyone gets that privilege to pray in those sort of random spots. But um, I think how's it been, being a young Muslim coming from school, college, straight into the corporate environment? What did you feel any challenges with that element of it, or has it been quite inclusive and quite you know welcoming, whereas you sort of settled down quite well and been generally okay as you experience as a Muslim?
So what sort of when I first joined, I mean, being organization, I sort of assumed that it would be there as well. So it wasn't sort of. It's a funny story as well. I never knew that my office had a prayer room. And sort of my office is in St. Paul's, and so what I used to do was on my sort of break, I never used to knew anyone there anyway, and a lot of my colleagues that were older than me, they sort of just eat their lunch at their table. That's it. I was like, okay, I don't really want to chill with them for like my lunch break, innit? So let me sort of do my own
Yeah,
thing. So I've my lunch break would just revolve around me eating my lunch and then going off to Holborn Mosque, pray there, and come back. Me not knowing there was a prayer room, I used to trek like do like a 10-minute walk to the mosque every day, pray there and come back. But then that was my own fault. I didn't really ask the questions and ask, is there a prayer room? And that sort of comes under me. I mean, I should have asked those questions, but then once I did find out there was a prayer room there, it completely changed everything. That's where I met Omer, Zishan, and a lot of other people, and sort of got involved in the Muslim network. And then I understood there, I was like, okay, there is a large Muslim presence, even though it wasn't visible at me at the
yeah,
start. By me going there and finding out, like when we used to do like Maghrib Jamaat, I'd turn around, there's like 15, 20 people behind me, and that's a lot of people. Like it's in like an office normally. So I did sort of find out afterwards. It's funny when I went to the prayer room from there on, then I sort of realized there is like a large Muslim community,
yeah.
and
That must feel amazing because yeah, it's something about that. I don't know what it is, man. But whenever you're in any workplace, you go to the prayer and you meet other brothers there. You just feel so much more.
it feels more special in a
Yeah,
way.
like you feel like, oh wait, I'm not alone. Like I've got
Yeah, yeah,
people.
exactly.
How long did it take for you to realize there was a prayer room?
Oh, bro, it was a funny story. It took like I think a month.
Oh, that's not too bad.
The problem was though, it was my own fault. I should have asked. I mean, but you just going down to facilities and being like, hey, is there a multi-faith room? And there you go. And then I think after that, it gave me the confidence of like wherever else I went, I sort of asked like, is there a prayer room? If I ever came across a time where I need a prayer and there wasn't a mosque nearby, it gives you that confidence of asking. So I think one of the main advice I'd give apprentices, ask the question depending on how irrelevant it may be. Like obviously praying is a big thing. You having your own thing and your own rights that you need to do, ask for it, and it can be facilitated. Like it's crazy now. Like there's like the BT Muslim Network, how fully involved they are with like the creation of new buildings. There's a new building opening up in Birmingham, and we as a Muslim Network, we were consulted about the prayer room as well. We saw the blueprints, and they asked us, like, "Is this okay? How do you want to structure it?" So it is interesting and it's amazing to see how prayer rooms are sort of one of the key things that they're looking to sort of have in a new building and not something where we sort of have to ask for,
Yeah,
um, sort of get
and
in.
definitely building that inclusive environment for Muslims and people that multi-faith, because I think faith is definitely a part that the corporate world has sort of neglected in the past, but they are trying to get that back on the map. It sounds like you mentioned that when you were praying and there's like 15, 20 people behind you. Sounds like quite a nice big prayer room at BT. Is that right? 'Cause I've had some tiny ones
Well,
that I've
it's not the biggest one. It's not the biggest one. It is quite tight. I mean, I'll probably over exaggerating 15, 20. I think max like 10, 12
not
people.
bad.
Um, yeah,
Because I remember some brother he was talking about what you mentioned as well, like a new office being built in a different location, and he spoke about how they basically he was involved in the planning of the prayer room, and he mentioned this thing called the Wudu Master 3000. And I was like, rah, they've got that there. And he's like, I probably should, and need to probably visit that place at some point and see this Wudu Master.
I've never heard of
Yeah,
that.
like it's like I think it's like a special sink that.
Oh, that's got everything in
Yeah,
there.
and I've seen some programs in government as well. They've got like some really dope, like proper system where you've got the foot wash, you've got like the seat, you've got like the sink right there, and it's mad. Like they people are putting those investments in there. But I think the reason of that is because there are Muslims in these positions to tell them basically to
Yeah,
give
that's
them
the
that
thing.
information and tell them that this is like what we need, and this is what's going to help keep Muslims engaged and really involved in this organization. And that leads me on to like this sort of question in terms of in your particular cohort or program, like how diverse is that sort of intake of apprentices coming in? Like, do you feel, are you like the only sort of Muslim there, or are there quite a few? Because I think we're as well. The point I'm trying to get to is like when you come to management, normally you associate again with like the traditional sort of white middle upper class person, and they are the people that mainly fill those
Yeah.
roles in. So it's this interesting thing that where this is the pipeline of people coming in. Is it diverse from your point of view, or does that need to be improved? Do you think?
It definitely is becoming improving and it can always be improved because in my cohort there's five of us and I'm the only Asian Muslim person in there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There is it's quite diverse. We've got you got Caucasian, you got your African American, but it was sort of I thought it felt as a letdown. I was like, I'm the only Muslim there. I'm not gonna have anyone I can sort of relate to in a way. But then after, then I realized that there's different apprenticeship schemes. So and that's where I met Umair Zain. And definitely, what you're right is that management apprenticeships sort of revolved around the upper class white people. And then when you have like technology, you sort of got your more Asians and your engineering. That's where you sort of come on to sort of your Asian Muslims, and that's where you see the
Yeah,
transition. But it is something that is improving because I've sort of a buddy to the next intake for the apprenticeships, and I spoke to a couple of them, and I think two, three of them are actually Muslims. So it is something that I'm seeing that is developing. But I think the whole reason why there isn't a lot more is because you see nowadays a lot of your Asians sort of going towards uni and doing your typical business management degree. Them not
yeah,
understanding what apprenticeships are, the management apprenticeships are, that there's another route that you can go down. And I think the whole primarily you can sort of blame it on schools not advertising as much. But it is something that is evolving and is becoming more widespread. And hopefully in the near future, inshallah, you'll see a lot more people knowing about management apprenticeships, especially in our community as
yeah.
well. Sort of getting involved in it and taking the most out of it because there is a hell of a lot of stuff you can learn out there and it is really beneficial for you sort of developing as a person and as a professional person because it gives you skills that you'll be doing on a daily
Yeah,
basis. And I wouldn't imagine me being here like
and it
before.
gives you that seat on the table, doesn't it? Where you're working towards a management role, so you're representing as well. Like, and sometimes I think we might forget that stuff is very important. Like, you know, being in management where they're making these decisions that impact the organization. They are, if they're like from the same background and just the same group of people, then they're gonna have the same thoughts of thinking, and they're not really gonna have the real understanding in terms of the wider implications, how it might impact certain groups. So especially for Muslims, man, we need to look at these positions and need to represent. Like, it's not a case of just being in their positions and then watering down everything and it's just like kind of, just being at them. That defeats the whole
Hmm.
purpose. But it's about
Yeah.
getting into the positions and really being proud and confident of your identity of Islam and representing that. Because if you do that, the more senior you get, the more they make these big decisions, and the more they, have these sort of, yeah, these big decisions and these ways of thinking. They're gonna need that diverse range of thinking. They're gonna need to understand, okay, and this doesn't apply to BT, but applies everywhere. They're gonna want people that actually understand their communities, their backgrounds, and how it might impact them. If you're making, so, for example, a policy decision, and you don't really have a, say, minority ethnic at the table from any background, any minority background, then you're probably likely going to neglect, in some respects, that community because you don't really have an understanding of someone there that represents their views. And Muslims need to get on that and realize more strategically, rather than just doing a business management degree. Why not look for a management degree apprenticeship where I will learn on the job, be given the responsibilities, and then by the end of the 4 years, I'll probably be in quite a sort of mid to senior position. And then, from the get go, I can start to represent, the dean and start to represent Muslims and make sure the decisions they make are inclusive of the Muslim and make sure that there's a voice by really representing. So I think that's why in management, in that sense, it is very important. And it's something that we need to definitely think about across all professions and especially corporate places as well. That if you want to make the experience better for your people, then you sort of need to be there and have some influence and some sort of level of seniority. But that doesn't come if we don't push, and that doesn't come if we don't look at these opportunities. That only comes if we start to take the proactive step to
That's
look
true.
at these different apprenticeship schemes or degree apprenticeships and try to get ourselves in these roles, and then start to represent and really show what we're about and make things better for our community. And that's why I really rate that you're on this program, and you might be like one of the few
Yeah.
Muslims there, but big pressure and responsibility. Yeah, no, none of that. But it's good though. It's good. I think
Yeah.
people seeing that you can do it and you're there will give them the confidence that
Exactly.
they
That's
can
what
do
it
it and
is.
they can get there, which is really powerful and
Yeah.
important.
Because I'm sort of coming from the same place as a lot of people anyway. Like, I grew up in Northwest London, Wembley, and went to sort of usual high schools, colleges. And if I can do it, I mean, it's not hard for anyone else to do it. And another key thing that you sort of picked up on was your identity. I was like, once you do get to like a senior position, you as a Muslim, you sort of have that. You as being an ambassador for Islam, it's sort of key that you keep your identity. Because often when you see a lot of senior people go to that, especially Muslims, they sort of change their way and they sort of. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they sort of
It gives the wrong
turn
message, doesn't it?
further away. It is what it is. Yeah, I think the most important thing is keep your identity to sort of change
Yeah,
others. And once you're at that senior level, I mean, a lot of senior Caucasian people, they're not exposed to sort of we as Muslims how we sort of operate on a daily basis. By you changing that, you're sort of influence them sort of carry on it is. But as you being a Muslim at a senior level and showing them that I take time out during the day to pray, I do this, I want to spread Islam across the business, across the organization, sort of shows them that, okay, we may need to be more
yeah,
inclusive. And that's you sort of changing them and changing the organization for a better.
yeah,
Because if you keep quiet and sort of continuing what you're doing, um, you're sort of not progressing yourself and you're not helping to build Islam. I mean, we as Ummah, main aim is to sort of spread Islam and make it more inclusive in our daily work. And us being in the UK is becoming more diverse and it's a very diverse country to live in. We being in those organizations, we sort of got to take it up on ourselves as well to sort of spread it in there and not be afraid and not talk about it
yeah.
as where we should do in
And
a
this is
way.
our challenge because our parents, they more or less came in, they did that the hard graft roles, but they laid the foundation at the mosques and everything. Now we are the generation that get into the more professional roles and representing there. So we need to now think, okay, how can we be the right ambassadors? And I think there's not a problem because this whole diversity and inclusion agenda is probably a advantageous time to stand out and be counted because they want that whole representation and inclusivity. So it's right. It's really important that we do stand out and own it and be proud of it. Not feel like awkward and that I've got to be like this or maybe I should maybe I need to go to the pub and stuff like that. But that's against everything that we should be looking to do. We should be looking to set a new standard and really like
Exactly. That's where we sort of got to speak up and not be afraid. I mean, some people often feel like, oh, if I say this, they're going to sort of judge me in that way. But you shouldn't take it that way because that's you as a person. That's what you're trained to do. You're supposed to act in how you're raised up. And by you going into an organization and you changing that, it sort of defines how strong your character really
Yeah,
is. And being in these roles, it sort of builds your character. So by you turning away and changing it completely, are you really benefiting what you're doing in a way? Because you being a Muslim, that will always come
yeah,
first. And your whole life revolves around being a Muslim and how we should adapt our roles to make it easier for us to continue to practice
yeah,
Islam. And by us quickly changing it like that, it questions your faith.
yeah,
And that's the key thing to remember how you should sort of be true to your roots and to continue what you're doing throughout and not letting small things alter your face and that sort of quick thing. I mean, yeah, at one point you could like question. I'm like, okay, let me go down to the pub for a quick, just chill with them for a bit, but then it could just lead on to something
yeah,
else.
and
By you being sort of strong in your path from at the forefront, it sort of builds you to help you be more comfortable in the future because then they're aware that okay, yeah, Haseeb don't chill like that.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe he can go out grab a munch to eat, that's fine. But it sort of lets you draw that line
100%.
sort of where
And we just said about drawing the line at the start, setting the standard at the start, it would just make everything easier for you going ahead. Like let's say for example, you decided to go to the pub, and even sometimes like, people say you don't have to drink, but you had the environment, the smell,
it's the environment.
it's
Yeah,
not
it's not
befitting.
something you don't want to be
Yeah,
into.
it's not befitting, and it's not the environment that's going to help you spiritually. If anything's going to kill the spirituality element. But if you say at the start, then they're going to know from the start, okay, we're not going to invite this guy to the drinks, or we're not going to mention that around him because we know he doesn't do that. Whereas if you
Yeah,
just are quite sort of soft on it at the start,
let it
yeah,
happen and just go along with it.
yeah,
I think that's like key advice that we can give to like the young people as well doing it is that they may feel sort of scared to turn them down, but then that's just you. You got to set it at the front, especially with the prayer room thing. Don't do what I did and leave it for a month and walk down to Holborn Mosque for 15 minutes every day. Don't do that. From the start, tell them that this is what I need, this is who I am, and then they'll sort of understand you and then you can work around it. Because Alhamdulillah, my role is very like it's comfortable in a way, especially when I was back in the office, when it would happen like Zohar time, Asr time, I could quickly pop down, pray and do my thing and then come back up again. It was no rush. By you telling your manager that at the forefront, it gives them the understanding and it just reduces all the awkwardness. Instead
yeah,
of you making multiple trips down, them not knowing about it, by you, and it's nothing harm with that, by them knowing that who you are, this is what you do, because it will just benefit you. Because then by them knowing, they can understand. Okay, yeah, Steve's got to go down, he's got to pray. I know that, and then he comes back, finishes work. It just makes it a lot more easy
yeah,
and just reduces all the
yeah, 100%.
awkwardness.
Just take the preemptive strike and prevent the awkwardness before it starts to kick in and become more and more sort of weird. And I think for some that are really sort of lacking the confidence and thinking that I might find it difficult. Fair enough. Sometimes people might be in that position, and I think it's just a case of maybe you are feeling like that, but maybe think about, okay, why is this important? Why is it important that you try to represent Islam in whatever capacity you can? We're not saying basically like to be like the sheikh or the scholar in your
Yeah, yeah.
organization.
There's a
Yeah, it's
limit.
just the
Yeah, you
basic
can't be
stuff.
Ali Dawah
Yeah,
every.
you can't do the
Yeah,
videos and with like debating different BT execs or stuff like that. None of that. It's just it's just staying true to who you are, and thinking about what impact it kind of has as being a Muslim in your environment. And then even if you're not there where you want to be, you can gradually work towards that and build that confidence up in yourself and in your iman. And I think once you mentioned that when you do like the work stuff and get your confidence on in that and develop in that sense, at the same time you can also develop spiritual stuff where you're developing your confidence on both sides. So as a Muslim, I'm understanding more my role, why it's important to represent, why it's important to really own it and be proud of it. And then whilst you're doing the work stuff, you're developing that confidence on that end. Then you're going both ways up, and then you probably get to a certain level where you feel that you can really drive it and not feel intimidated. Oh, that you feel like if anyone says anything, I can now speak up against it. But at the start, you might not necessarily feel that, which is fine because you're very new to the organization. You're still finding yourself out. You're still figuring out what you're about and those values and all of that. But I think if you start off with the intention that you want to build yourself professionally, and then also not compromise yourself spiritually, and just try to stick to that and gradually build up on each one, then I think you'll get to the place you want to get to. And yeah, I think maybe some might feel like they're not there yet, or they're not ready for that yet. But I think if that's the case, that's fine. Just try to put it in your mind and plant that seed that you want to get to it, and then slowly, if you have the intention, then and you make the dua, then Allah will make it happen for you, and in time you'll get there. But it's just to say that for those that might feel the added pressure. Oh man, and I have to really represent and I have to do all of that stuff. But
No, it's nothing
yeah,
like that. It's just a minor thing. Like you just continuing your practicing at a workplace, it's sort of that's you being an ambassador
yeah,
yourself. Because then it sort of educates other people as well. That okay, he's a Muslim, he prays at these times, and he's not uncomfortable doing it in a workplace. It just sort of it sheds Islam in a greater light in a way. Because then we're not hidden away doing it in different. We're just doing it openly, and it just shows how open we are in Islam. We're not a hidden religion; it's open to everyone, and we're not sort of scared of practicing it in the public place.
yeah, 100%.
So by you just continually doing that, it makes Islam easier for people to understand in a
Yeah,
way, which is something that people a lot there's a lot of misconceptions behind it. So it just makes it easier for us and the third party.
yeah. And the most important thing is stick to the salah. If you're struggling with everything else, that's fine, but stick to the salah, because sometimes people might just wait to the end of the day and pray them more in qaza or stuff like that. But don't try not to do that. Try to own it and really just stick to the salah, because that's the main
That's the core thing. That's
exactly.
where it all comes
Yeah,
from.
and everything else, if you stick to that, everything else will gradually come around it. But don't let go of that. That's the main point. Don't ever let go of that. That's the very most important and key thing that you should definitely bring with you to the workplace. And inshallah, everything else like the confidence and all that elements will complement it and go along. But the salah is the key, and we should never ever let go of that. That's the heart, of being a Muslim, and the most important thing. Before we get into the next question, I noticed your lighting is getting a bit brighter.
Oh, it's getting a bit
Yeah.
brighter. Okay, let me put my curtain back. Is that too dark?
Hang on, just do it a little bit. I think that's okay. Let's see. Actually, that's okay now. It's okay. Yeah,
Is that
slightly,
okay?
but it's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
the lighting's doing a madness today.
My lighting is right in front of me, so I get the
Yeah,
nice
yeah, no,
part.
you're good. Your one's fine.
It's the perks of being in the front room.
Yeah.
But so I'll probably cut that part out just and go straight back
No.
into it. So coming back from a very brief short break, I want to get into. So we spoke a lot, about opposed to being a Muslim in these sort of roles, how to sort of maybe navigate some of the challenges, really holding on to Salah, and a lot of insight into the scheme you're on and the exposure and the development you get. A few before we get into the application stage, when do vacancies generally open? Is it around November, December time?
January is sort of early autumn from like September till November. Um, but I did a bit of research. My specific role, BT, is sort of closed for this year, obviously due to COVID, and I'm sure it will be a couple other organizations will be closing some of their roles off. But from 2021, they generally do open from early autumn till like November.
That's fine.
But it does also vary on. I mean, other companies could have different ones, but generally it is from that time.
Yeah, and that is one of the implications of COVID. But even then, there's a lot of value that you can get from this and use it, whether you're going to apply for BT or like even other ones.
Yeah.
So they're definitely still worth listening to this. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, the vacancy's not opening, better stop listening. Don't go.
Let me come back to this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't worry. Finish listening to this and then come back again
No,
next
no.
year if you need to. So yeah, don't go away. There's more to come. Application stage. Yeah. Let's give us an overview of those steps and the process and how you sort of navigate each one.
So specific to BT, it's sort of your general normal application. You do normal situational strengths test. From there on, if you pass the test, you get invited to do a video interview, which is very awkward. And then from there on, you do your assessment interview. The video interview, I think, is one of the hardest ones, possibly even more harder than interview because you just not knowing what to expect because there's not another person on the screen. It's just your face watching you sort of answer the question.
Nothing more awkward than that.
But it can be very awkward. But the piece of advice I'd give to people doing it is companies are aware that you are coming out of sort of school and you're not. This is the first time you're doing an interview, and with it being on online, it's sort of even harder. So don't be afraid of making mistakes and sort of stuttering. It's general. It's going to happen, and they sort of take that into consideration as well. Because I remember when I did mine, I was waffling all over the place, and I still got in. So there's still hope. So don't worry. But yeah, take it very lightly. Don't take it too serious. But yeah, it should be all right once you sort of get used to it. And then the assessment stage, that was sort of a group stage. So it was all broken up into three parts. You had your group activity, where you sort of did a couple of activities with a couple of people there, and they sort of judged you on that. And then after you'd have like a one-to-one interview. And then in my one, the third one was I sort of had to present something to one of the interviewers. So I think the hardest part one was probably the group stage one, sort of working with other people. And the key advice was is be as engaging as you can because they sort of rate you on how you sort of work with other
Yeah.
people and ensure that you sort of talk to people and get to know them and just doing the small stuff like that. It just puts you aside because it shows you that okay, if they're very engaging in an interview, they're going to be very engaging in work, which is what we want because they sort of enhance it, sort of allows for collaboration and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
It feels like,
So don't be afraid.
sorry, it feels like this is all very new to you, like, because you came literally straight from like college pretty much.
Yeah,
All of
yeah,
this
all
very new to
very
you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Alhamdulillah, I had a lot of people to sort of ask questions to because I'm one of the youngest in the families, and I've had cousins who've gone to uni, and my brother's gone to uni, gone to work, and they're all in like full-time work. So I was able to ask them a lot of questions, and they sort of allowed me to sort of make it easier. But obviously, not a lot of people have those
Hmm.
opportunities out for them. But key advice is take it lightly, and just be yourself. Don't sort of think that okay, I'm in a corporate environment, I need to sort of change myself and be a lot more like
Yeah.
professional. Take it very lightly, be yourself. Obviously, yeah, you have to be professional in certain aspects, but be as engaging as possible because they really do look for that. Especially interacting with other apprentices. Don't look at them as being the competition. Sort of see them as your
Hmm.
colleagues in a way and act with them how you would act in if you did get the job role
Yeah.
because it really does put you aside in that way.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. Because I know Umair and Zain, they've gone into it in quite a bit of detail as well. And it seems that, is it more or less the basic sort of, the situation judgment test, the video interview, and then the assessment center? Is it pretty much the same for every apprentice on different programs, or are there certain elements that are tailored?
I mean, for me, what I've gone through, I've sort of seen it be generally the same thing. I mean, for technology apprentices, you could sort of be asked like different questions depending on the course itself. But generally, overview, they are quite similar, and you will be going through the same structure as well.
Yeah. Because yeah,
Because I went to,
no,
sorry,
no,
go on.
go on. Sorry.
Because I also went to a interview for British Airways as well. That was for a level four, so it wasn't really a degree apprenticeship. It was a first year
Yeah.
degree one, and that was quite similar to what I did to the BT one. So it is quite similar in a way, depending on the apprenticeship standard that you're going through.
Yeah, and definitely people can also listen to like Zayn and Omer's experience as well, because it'll give you a good variety of the different sort of experiences on a sort of similar kind of assessment center. Um, were there any sort of like, perhaps if you were to advise someone, so let's say I asked you, okay, so I want to prepare for the video interview, what potential questions or sort of questions, along the lines of could they potentially ask that I should perhaps be thinking about, or getting ready? Was there anything that you kind of recall that, or you would advise someone to consider when they perhaps thinking about this video interview, or even like the sort of the stuff at the assessment center?
So a key thing would be to research about the company, know what they are, what they're about, and the role that you will be doing. Because they will ask you questions about that, and you just having knowledge about the company itself will put you ahead. Some of the questions that will come up is sort of how you, what they'll ask you is how can you sort of do a degree and a full-time job at the same time? How can you sort of balance the two? It is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan on doing it? And having understanding of sort of structuring how you can sort of do your study time and do your work time. Me personally, the way I do involve my study time, I take one day out of the week and complete all my study time there. So that could be one of the examples you could be like you could use. Sort of other questions they ask you is sort of why do you want to do this role? How do you feel about doing the role? How do you work with other people on the role? How would you interact with your colleagues and stuff like that? And before you sort of do the interview itself, they do give you sort of an overview of the sort of questions that could be asked that could be asked of you. So it does give you sort of a background of what you could be asked to from there as well.
Yeah, no, that's really sort of useful to know. And again, so we've got Haseeb, we've got Zain, and we've got Umar, who've sort of been through the same assessment center through BT. So you could definitely get a variety of different sort of experiences and flavors in terms of how they navigate sort of certain steps. And if you were to like, I know you mentioned I take it the video interview to try to take it lightly and be relaxed. Did you do any practice for it? Like, did you have any previous video interviews and other assessment centers that may have kind of helped you prepare for it, or do you just sort of just go in like, kind of blind in a sense?
No, I did because I did apply for a lot. I mean, I can't remember the amount of applications I put through. I think I must have done at least five, six video interviews with different ones. So it did help a lot. So another piece of advice is apply for a lot of them, even if it may be in a role that you don't really want to do, or it may be in a location where it's not suitable for you. Apply for it. Go through the same experience because then it will only help you for the one that you really want to
Yeah.
do. Because I went through I think four or five, and then some of them I was just staring at the camera, not knowing what to say. So it gave me a sort of peace of mind. As okay, no, don't do this in the next one, and it gives you understanding what to expect in a way. And a lot of the questions, a lot of them are replicated. And another key thing on the situational strength test, they sort of try and word the questions in a similar way. So do look out for that. A lot of them will be a lot similar, and the questions are the same. They just word it in a different way.
Yeah.
So you have to be very observant on that. And it's the same thing with the questions they asked you for the video interviews. If you, by you doing one, because I think I did one for Nestle, and legit the same questions popped up, the one that I did for TFL and for BT. So a lot of them are replicated. So by you going through various different amounts of them, will put you ahead of
Yeah.
when you're going to actually do a real one that you really want to go into.
Yeah, and I can't stress that enough. Like, I've probably said it in most episodes now. To just even you're a grad, an intern, first year university, or even college, first, second year student, apply. Just do it. It's not
Yeah,
just for the sake of for no reason. Like if you do it, and again, you mentioned it might not be the one that you're ideally going for, but if you go through the process, then like you mentioned, a lot of it is repetitive. Like because with apprentices especially, they can't assess a great deal because you don't have the experience. And
you've only been exposed to a little bit
exactly,
amount. That's the
they're not
thing.
expecting you to come with like bags of 10 years of experience and this and that. They're not expecting that. What they're going to assess you on is potential, motivation, and basically potential strength and motivation. So somebody like who's going to be shrewd about it, they're going to think, okay, you know what? If this is like the things they're going to assess me on, let me go through the processes of maybe different ones, and then you're going to pick up, okay, that sounded fairly familiar. Like the why question will probably always come up. Why do you want to do this? What interests you about this
Yeah,
particular organization or company? And that's basically do your homework, you do the research, and then why does that align with your values or interests? But a lot of it, again, like working with different people, how do you balance your qualification with the job? There's a common theme of questions that come up, and you would know that or be familiar with it if you just take the step to apply for as many as you can and go through the
do it.
process. Go through the process so you learn from each one. If you get rejected at the first stage and realize, okay, you know what, I need to work on that first stage, then get to the next stage, and then you gradually progress in development. I think it's just that case of maybe just get off Snapchat or get off Instagram for a bit and just do something.
That's it.
Do it. Do
Yeah.
it. At least try to apply for you know maybe set a target. You don't want to apply for maybe 4 this month, or just go through the process. Honestly, it's only going to be something that benefits you and puts you at a stronger position to secure these apprenticeships. Say degree apprenticeships, you want to be aiming for the best, aiming for the highest one.
That's it. Yeah.
And
Because once you do it one time, you'll sort of get an understanding of how to
yeah,
do it. And another key thing is sort of don't get demotivated when applying for apprenticeships. Because funny enough, when I was applying for this specific BT one, I did the application form, which took me I think like 10 minutes. Straight away, I got an email saying you're not suitable for this role. You can't get it. I'm like, what? And then, funny enough, when I did that, I sort of thought, okay, you know what, I can't be bothered. Let's just leave it. But then the good thing is, I actually went back and I made a mistake on the application form. I sort of put in there was a form where it said, "Have you applied for this role in the past 6 months?" And I
yeah,
must have accidentally ticked yes. And that's the reason why it didn't let me do it. So I emailed them. So if I didn't email them and sort of get through it, I wouldn't sort of be sitting here
that's
talking to
mad.
you right now. So the
Yeah,
key thing is sort of go back and don't get demotivated. Like, if you do get out of the blue, you do put in an application form and you get rejected straight away, look into it, because email them like, what did I do wrong? Because it could be a simple mistake you made on the application form that could sort of cost you the beginning of your career in a way,
that,
and we don't want that. So definitely don't sort of you see a rejection, look over it. Definitely investigate it, find out what you did wrong, because A, you either get experience of
yeah.
what you can improve on next time, or B, you sort of overturn it and find out that okay, this was a mistake I did.
I
Can you
still find it
change
mad
that?
that if you didn't do that, like that one little check, then
Yeah,
it's
no,
crazy how stuff like that is just written.
it's a crazy thing how things change. Yeah, you've got to be persistent
Hundred
and know
percent.
what you want. and sort of chase after, and inshallah, Allah will it will make it easy
And
for you all the
that
interview
literally
time.
is a testament to that. And even with video interviews, like I think you can be really awkward when even the camera points at you, for example, at a wedding, and you're munching your food. You find that
When
awkward.
you're
And
munching your food.
imagine talking in front of a camera and try to like really bring in the emotion and try to show the passion and try to speak clearly. I think for a lot of us
Yeah,
that can be very difficult. And I mentioned as well, like even for me, I've struggled with that in my first sort of ever video on my YouTube channel, which people can see. And I left a comment there saying I left it as it is because I wanted to show that I was uncomfortable, but I managed to do it.
yeah, not
Yeah,
everyone's
and once
perfect.
you
Yeah,
again just do it, like just if you're on phone camera, just play yourself, record yourself doing the example. It's gonna help, and it would sort of help you to identify how you're sounding robotic or how you can kind of maybe make yourself more human. Because it's hard when you're talking in front of a screen and there's no response or no nothing, and it's
definitely.
fine. I
Yeah,
think everyone will go through that challenge, but the more you practice, the more competent you get at it, the more again confident you'll be when you come across the real thing because you'll already be used to it and you'll already be very fluent. And inshallah, from there, as long as you've done your part, in the rest will go well, inshallah. Um,
that's
this
it.
is sort of a question that I don't know if you can answer because it's like quite a general one, but is there anything in particular that you recommend for young Muslims sort of maybe try to get a head start or understanding of the management sort of apprenticeship scheme or like generally a career in like a management sort of role with for entry level sort of programs like apprenticeships? Is there any are there any sort of resources there or anything you advise someone to look into or anything like that?
I think one of the things that I did was, I'm sure you heard of Pearson's College. They do a lot of apprenticeship works with like companies. And I actually sort of went to one of the, it was a discovery day, so it was specifically managed for apprenticeships and chartered management apprenticeships. So it was sort of an experience day where I went there, and there was like a whole panel of apprentices doing management degrees. They sort of broke down their experiences, what they did, and the Pearson's colleges themselves sort of gave it insight of what to expect as an apprentice, especially a management apprentice. So definitely researching, and obviously now it will be hard to sort of do that because of COVID, but I'm sure they will still be running the same thing online. Pearson's College is a really good place to start because they've been doing apprenticeships quite recently, and they've been sort of getting involved more with companies other than other universities, and they've got a whole pool of resources. And management apprenticeships is sort of one
Mm,
of the key ones that they're doing, specifically the one that I'm on,
yeah,
the chartered management one. So you could find a lot of information on there, and even the small stuff. By you going on LinkedIn and you researching about a company that you're interested in, and finding people of that network, by you just reaching out to them and telling them that I'm interested in doing a management apprenticeship, and asking them questions and just getting a whole insight. That's one of the key things. Like, don't be afraid of like asking people out, like, because that's it's beneficial for you because you're getting an insight, and it shows to them that this person is really interested. He took out of his way and sort of came to me, which can sort of be quite daunting for someone as a student, sort of message someone of like
yeah, yeah,
in a
yeah.
corporate world and trying to figure out what they're
People are
doing.
very responsive to that as well, especially on LinkedIn. Like, I've said it pretty every
Definitely,
episode
yeah,
I recorded and every like clip I try to put out. I try to plug LinkedIn in some way because I think it's a gold mine, and if you use it right, then you've got access to like unofficial mentors. You've got access to insight, advice, and people that can really help you, and people that post really useful content that you can translate into your careers, like whether it's skill stuff, whether it's like the experiences. Like it's probably for me. I think it's probably the best social media platform because there's positive vibes there, and there's a lot of kind of encouragement of growth and development, and people are very happy to support, especially if a young person approaches. Like most cases, I think
yeah.
you'll likely get a response and get the advice that you need. Yeah,
They enjoy it because they like sort of helping, like it's helping other people. It feels good because it allows you to sort of get that experience of mentoring someone. So definitely, don't be afraid of doing that.
yeah.
Like it will benefit you. I mean, the worst thing they can say is sort of
But there's
no, you
loads.
just find another person. Then I mean,
Yeah,
it's loads. There are loads
there's
out
loads,
there.
and I think in terms of practical sense as well, like maybe if there's sort of you know mini projects you can get involved in, maybe charity stuff, youth work, um, little things where you can maybe try to own a certain strand of that and take responsibility. That might help you get familiar with owning pieces of work and just developing you in that sense where you know that okay, I'm getting involved in this perhaps charity fundraiser, and I'm going to aim to raise maybe £500 or whatever it is, but by taking ownership and responsibility of it, you kind of get into that mindset of, okay, this is mine to own, this is mine to push, this is mine that
Yeah.
I have to do it now because nobody else is going to do it. I think if you kind of get sort of that, those little practices, it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily be what I just mentioned, but anything where you can kind of get a bit of exposure to some sort of ownership and responsibility, um, even if it's like a piece of housework or a fixing a certain broken product, whatever it is, like it's something minor, but just owning it and taking responsibility for it, I think can kind of give you
Mhm.
that sort of mindset in terms of preparing for like a management scheme or anyway, because you're getting used
Definitely.
to, taking ownership and responsibility of things that are within your remit or the things that you're taking ownership of. I've mentioned ownership and responsibility so many times, I'm going to stop mentioning that by now. But the point is, anything you can get involved in where you can take that responsibility, do it, because it's going to give you that familiarity. And that familiarity is important where if you want to settle in quicker into these sort of roles or get an understanding of how it works, then fundamentally, if you can manage yourself and manage your own stuff, then you're going to be likely effective to manage an organization's work and projects. So it kind of goes back in it. Manage yourself so you can manage
That's where it
others.
sort of comes from. It's sort of reflective of how you manage yourself is reflecting on how you manage other people. And another key thing to sort of get involved in is extracurriculum stuff. Because doing a management apprenticeship, you sort of need to communicate with people about you just joining a lot of teams like
Yeah,
your football team, your basketball team, joining a boxing club, or doing even air
yeah,
cadets like I did. It really does make a difference because you're speaking to people on a daily basis, new people, you'll be meeting new people, and it sort of gives you that sort of, it's sort of setting you up when you work in the corporate environment because you can sort of apply the skills that you use there from there because you just introducing yourself to other people can seem quite daunting at first, but you having the experience and you just working with people in a team allows you to work better when you work as a team in the future because you've gone through that. You understand how the team works and how the way you act as a team sort of affect the productivity and the
yeah,
outcome of the result of the team. So you just doing those small stuff, and it's
yeah,
enjoyable stuff. It's like hobbies. Go forward in your hobbies, do them, especially if it's with you doing with other people, because it just helps you share your hobby and then give you that experience of working with other people. Even though it may not be in a professional environment, the skills are still transferable because you'll still be communicating, and that's something that you'll be doing in a professional environment as well. So it'll always be
100%. And the
beneficial
air cadet
anyway.
sounds really like it really gave you a lot of development and a lot of it kind of exposure out of your comfort zone. And it seems like something that really increased your confidence. Is that right?
Definitely, yeah, it's a lot of discipline. So it does teach you sort of sort of how you sort of treat yourself with other people in groups. And I mean, I met a lot of different people in a lot of different environments. I did a lot of sports activities, a lot of um, physical activities. So it just a lot of them, even though you're not going to be doing them in a professional environment, they still are transferable. And it's another sort of thing to put on your CV because the main thing when you're applying for apprenticeships, your
Yeah,
CV is going to be very limited because you're just coming straight out of
yeah,
college
definitely.
most of the time. So by you doing these extra stuff, it sort of builds you and allows you to become more structured in a way and gives you more stuff to talk about in your interviews as well. Because a lot of them they're going to be asking you questions of like experiences of where you've done this, where you've done that. By you doing these activities, you're giving yourself the opportunity to talk about them because you go into them on a like on a first base basis you can talk about it structured in an interview because if they ask you a question of where have you displayed key communication skills, you could be like, oh yeah, I was in the air cadets for 2 years. I work with younger cadets. I taught them this. I taught them that. I got involved in different charities. It allows you to sort of build those conversations and portray yourself as an engaging person, which is one of the key things
Oh yeah,
that
one
they
sec.
actually look
One's
for.
coming to the room. A lot about the air cadets, and I think again it goes back to the point about being able to manage yourself, being able to understand yourself, and know who you are. Then if you have that, like it goes back to leadership as well. It relates to leadership. If you can lead yourself and know your strengths and weaknesses and embrace getting out of your comfort zone to develop, then you're going to be able to help manage others and lead others. Like I've seen like different leaders. I've seen leaders that had like
Exactly.
insecurities, and I've seen like how they were. The leadership was very like from the top. And the funny thing is, when you're at the top and you can't manage yourself, you can't lead yourself, then that kind of insecurity or that sort of fear or anything you have is going to really feed right down to the team, to the most junior member. So it's really important that even these little things that we do, it helps us to figure out who we are and how we can manage ourselves, and then that can translate to leading teams, managing teams, and delivering results in that sense. And I think that's massively important because again, I've seen like good leadership from the top and how that stabilizes the team. And I've seen like insecure leadership from the top and how that just kind of feeds into that uncertainty and like culture of sort of fear and survival, and that's just not the way to go. And it starts with like the simple stuff, like everything we just mentioned in this whole podcast episode about doing different things, like whether it's air cadets, whether it's taking ownership of little projects, anything you can do to, again, really take the initiative, take that step out of the comfort zone and go do it. Yeah, you're going to figure out things about yourself, you're going to learn about yourself, you're going to know more about who you are, because the world, like you'll see people that pretend that they have it all figured out, that pretend that they know it all, but really and truly they don't.
That's it,
Honestly, they
yeah.
don't. Many people in their 30s and 40s, even 50s, are still trying to figure out themselves. I don't think that these people are like what they perceive to be on the outside. They're probably trying to resolve a lot of things, where just focus on your inner self, focus on how you can improve and build on these little management skills, whether that's, again, maybe organizing your own room and keeping that clean, for example. That's just maybe a small example, but
Just small things. 'Cause
it's very subtle, but honestly, it makes a massive difference, which I think is really important. Why, we were discussing this whole management degree apprenticeship, and literally goes right back down to being able to manage yourself and your own things, really. That's a deep reflection, isn't it?
no, definitely no. That's what it's small things like that. It just builds it. Because it will only benefit you in the future as well. And I'm gonna say it again, it's building your CV, getting as much stuff as you can on there. Because obviously, you being coming out of college, you're not gonna have a lot of stuff on there. So getting involved in charity work, even just engaging in your hobbies that you like to do. If you like to play football, go out, join a football team, play football every Sunday or anything. Just write it down. It just makes you more engaging and allows them to sort of build up conversations with you, and you sort of to bring up stuff. Because that's the whole point of it. Because it can get some point when you're doing interviews, the questions sort of get lighthearted and you don't know what to say. By you talking about your hobbies, it's one of the things that you can get interested in, because you can always
Yeah,
relate that to the work. Because the whole point about you being in a team, it can always be relatable, because the skills will always be transferable. Not all of
yeah,
them,
being a
but a
team player, maybe
majority of
being
them
the
will be.
captain of the team, or definitely that
That's
even
it,
like
yeah.
from that you can derive like a good solid example and experience. But there's literally a last point I was going to mention, which I've forgotten, but if it comes back, I'll mention it. But are there? Yeah, it's
No,
coming to the end. Are there any sort of final words or reflections or advice you would share to a young Muslim listening to this?
I think the main thing about apprenticeships aren't sort of seen as the best route to go down in our community. Obviously, us being Asians, we're sort of pushed towards becoming a doctor,
Yeah,
going to engineering, becoming an economist, something like that. So don't be afraid of doing apprenticeships, because I remember when I first sort of brought up apprenticeships to my family, they're like, "Oh, he's gonna become a builder. He's gonna be doing one of those white hat jobs." But when you sort of break it down to them and you find out how diverse it is now, it sort of does allow you to sort of put that out, like, okay, wow, this is something new, this is something completely different, like why not go for it, and push for it as hard as you can. I mean, alhamdulillah, like I said before, I've had a lot of role models who have allowed me to sort of provide them their own experience I could sort of work from. So like my brother, for example, he did a sort of similar thing to an apprenticeship back in the day in the college. It was a lot more technical. He did it in engineering, but for 10 years onwards it's completely changed.
yeah,
Apprenticeships now, you can get a degree now. So by you having the experience, it allows you to sort of understand of this is what I really want to do, and it allows you to push for it even harder and do all your research. And another key thing would be is that you can find apprenticeships in sort of anything nowadays. If there's a specific company that you want to go into, say BMW for example, I really wanted to join BMW. I researched, and they've got apprenticeships in that field. So by you researching about different stuff, it just sort of opens your eyes out. Because there's a lot of stuff that we're unaware of nowadays, and apprenticeships still aren't as advertised as they
mm.
should be. Because they are sort of the next best thing. I mean, you're doing a full-time job, you're getting paid, you're getting your degree for free.
Literally,
What else
what's
can you
better
get?
than that? Like legit, like I can't, I've been on both sides and I've thought about both sides, and there isn't, unless you're looking to do something like medicine or something really specific, and 100% you're motivated, want to do it, then fair enough. But everything else, there's
That's
more
it.
and more and more approaches coming out. I know from being in the apprenticeship space, they are doing a lot more work, and there's more standards coming out in different tech roles, like non-tech roles in digital, for example. So there's going to be a lot coming out for everyone. And I think something really important that, again, like final thoughts that you mentioned, was about um, researching. Like, don't wait for the advert to come on your social media, or like someone to tell you. Like,
That's
go
it.
about
Yeah,
Google, BMW, Google, Rolls Royce, Google all these different, British Airways, whatever. You
that's
should
it.
Google them, and you'll find the results, and you figure out what's there. And nobody's gonna do it for you. Like, you have to take it upon yourself to do the research, and then you'll be surprised what you come out with, and what you find. Actually, you find there's actually so much there that you can go for. And maybe fair
Yeah,
enough, COVID might have a slight impact with that now, but it's gonna come back at some point. The government know they're very big on apprenticeships, so
definitely.
it's gonna, yeah,
It's
it's
gonna
gonna,
come back. And I think another key thing that a lot of people watching this, I think a lot of people who really don't choose apprenticeships, I think the reason why they don't choose that is because of that social impact. I mean, yeah, going to university is very exciting, but I think that excitement only lasts for like a couple months because I've spoken to a lot of my
the
friends
stress
who've
is
gone
kicked in.
uni and first couple of months, I see their Snapchats, they're having fun, they're going to freshers week, meeting different people. But then I was like, 2 weeks later, I was like, where's the snaps gone? What are you guys doing now? They're like, yeah, we've got bored of it. But whereas me, I'm sort of in a corporate environment, I'm learning this, I'm learning that, and it don't sort of take the social impact as the main thing. That
Yeah,
will eventually wear off. And funny enough, but you doing an apprenticeship allows you to have a social life because you're earning money.
and
You
you
can
meet
sort of
other
go
apprentices
and
as
sort of
well, like
spend it.
whether it's in other organizations.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you're still gonna get that thing, and joining
Yeah,
networks is a key thing, especially in BT with the BT Muslim network. You join a lot of different networks, you get involved in different stuff. Like, if it wasn't for the Muslim network, I probably wouldn't be speaking
yeah,
to you.
exactly, yeah.
So it's crazy with the amount of people with the amount of people you get introduced in, and sort of different opportunities that you can take. Because this is something very new to me, and I'm sure as you guys know, I've been sort of waffling on a
No
bit.
comment.
It's something new, but I mean, it's all in due time. And like once you sort of do one thing at the start, you get experience in it. You'd want to engage in it more, and that's the thing. Just taking that first simple step
100%.
and doing it. And apprenticeships will sort of give you that wide overview that a university can't. I mean, yeah, you can do a sandwich year where you do 1 year placement. But that's only 1 year. After you do that, you're coming back to uni and you're going to
Yeah,
the same thing again. The apprenticeship gives you that whole thing 4 years on. And it can be a lot of work, and it is going to be a lot of work. So I would
mm,
advise don't take it lightly, especially with balancing a full-time job and you doing a full-time course. Um, don't underestimate the pressure that you'll be doing and the work, but it's sort of just you taking a step back and
it's
finding the
worthwhile.
best fit for you.
It's
Um,
worthwhile.
Definitely, yeah. Because then if you by you going through this sort of hectic stage now, in the future, it allows you to sort of handle pressure better, be able to manage your time better, be able to prioritize stuff better, and that's all will benefit you in the future when even if you're a manager or not, it's still going to be something that you're going to be doing.
100%. And the way to summarize it is, 4 years experience and a degree. Imagine coming out of that at university.
That's it.
You'll be,
Alhamdulillah,
yeah,
with a lot of
exactly,
savings as
bro.
well.
And Umair, like, again, last point. I remember he mentioned a point about how, the university social lifestyle isn't necessarily compatible with the Muslim lifestyle anyway. So perhaps, we should be thinking about that
Yeah,
in the sense of maybe
true.
the degree level apprenticeship. It is the perfect solution in many aspects, whether you have different views on the loan, whether it's that kind of social element where you don't really want to get into the unnecessary socializing, which a lot of universities have, partying and that kind of stuff, which is a lot of why people want to go, like, not non-Muslims, no, not Muslims, but a lot of people, why they want to, try to
Yeah.
get, into that and experience that.
It's tempting. It's tempting. So the best thing is sort of don't put yourself in that position. Yeah. You could have you could be like very self-restricting, and be like, yeah, I'm going to go uni, but I'm not going to do that. But I mean, why put yourself in that position? Because it's
Yeah,
very tempting. Like you never know how it could sort of end up. By you doing an apprenticeship, you're sort of benefiting yourself because you're getting paid to do work. You're getting that experience, and at the same time, you're eliminating that sort of sense of
potential. I guess it's not
uh,
like we're not saying it's going to be something that you fall into, but it's just,
yeah. It's
yeah,
something that
and
can
you're
sort of creep
eliminating a
up on
lot.
you.
It's not just that risk element, because I've seen some people change at university, becoming more kind of like that, more socializing in the sort of not necessarily the right way. But I've seen others that have kind of turned to Deen as well. But even just on the whole package,
Yeah.
especially if you're someone that's thinking about a business management degree, then really you should be thinking about a management degree apprenticeship. If you're someone that's thinking about, the economics degree, then perhaps we should be looking at the economist degree apprenticeship, which is also out in government. So it's just
Yeah.
stuff like that, and the pros, I think, definitely outweigh the cons. And we could go into we could go on for like many hours mentioning that, but just
Yeah.
conscious
Yeah.
of time now. I will close it here. But I think, Haseeb, you are on LinkedIn, And every time I speak to a guest, I do mention, people that listen to this can reach out to them on LinkedIn. They are there, they are
Definitely, yeah,
available, and
no,
they're happy to respond. So, if you want to find out more about the management degree apprenticeship, you want to find out more about how maybe Haseeb navigates certain challenges, because coming fresh from pretty much college onto a degree apprenticeship might not have been the easiest thing, as you've kind of touched upon. So people might want some more advice on that. Maybe drop a comment on YouTube or our Instagram channels, or get in touch with Haseeb directly on LinkedIn and reach out, because take the initiative and find out what it is that you might need clarifying on. But aside from that, bro, I think I will close it here, and Jazakallah khair for taking the time out and speaking a lot
no,
of detail
it's
about
been a
your
real honor.
experience, man.
No, Alhamdulillah, thank you for the opportunity, man. It's been very insightful. And this thing I can tick off my list. I've done a podcast,
That's not the whole
alhamdulillah.
point. Yeah, jacket.
Yeah, I know, no, definitely not. Spreading the word, letting people know. But alhamdulillah,
No
man, I
problem, bro.
appreciate the
But
time.
with that, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.